Hello, puppies and kittens. Welcome to our fourth to last hangout on the Quran lessons for the infidel. And well, let's just jump ahead and get into it. Bogey, you have notes. You want to take us off?
I do have notes. It looks like the infidel is getting quite versed in the Quran, literally. So today we are tackling four tiny little surahs because they're tiny and they're next to each other. Despite the fact that these are Madanis, they are really, really short, just like the early Mecca ones, but they are different in nature. So, yeah. In today's surahs, we only have one abrogation on 58:12, and it is abrogated by 58:13. And right, and you basically just nailed it right there because you just figured out that 58:13 is abrogating 58:12, and you explained it that way in your notes. So you just had the feel for it. It was right there on the plate. Anyways, so my first note on Surah 63, which is our first surah today, is of course the hypocrites, the weasels, the two-faced, right? So that's the title of this chapter. And it's my first note is 63:01. It describes the hypocrites, but I get your point. Maybe all of them are. I have a feeling that someone might want to push back on that one, claiming to be the one true believer, and then falling short of providing evidence for that. By the way, this is a thought crime if you ever needed one. Can we check it out? This would qualify as a thought crime because you openly say, I believe this, and you act like you believe it, but then inside your heart, inside your thoughts, you don't believe it, and that's why you're bad.
Yeah, very Orwellian, which really most religions are.
You thought Orwell would read these books? Um, 63:2 is my next note, unless somebody has something to add to 63:1. So exactly. Can you read your notes, please?
Certainly, one second. Oh no, I can't read it enough. I
Okay.
accidentally closed it.
Okay. So the point is, they do the shahada. So outwardly, they look like Muslims. They say, I believe that Allah is Allah and that Muhammad is his prophet. And then they go to the prayers, and they do the animal sacrifice at the end of the year and all the other stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
They look and act like Muslims, but they are not actually believers. So how do you differentiate that? But actually, in their heart, they don't believe. They just want to be safe from persecution by the Muslims, because time and time again we keep reading to treat the non-believers badly in the Quran. This is called taqiyya when done by Muslims, and it's considered a good thing. Here, now you're singeing in hell.
Okay, I finally managed to pull it up again. So you wanted me to read the note before verse 2?
Yeah, 63:2.
All right. So my note says that IslamicStudies.info explains that they use the oaths that they swear to convince others of their Islam and faith as a shield to save themselves from the wrath of the Muslims, so that they do not treat them as they treat their open enemies. So the
Right.
hypocrites are those who profess to believe but don't really believe.
Yep, yep, yep. Which brings
May
us to 63:1. Who
but
is a true believer after all?
one thing here. So in Islam, what's his name? Um, when you have that complex that you make believe until you act like you're believing. the French mathematician. I forgot his name right now.
Fake it till you make it.
Basically, that doesn't work in Islam. I was gonna say Al-Qamarian, but it's not.
It's not actually.
It's not. That's the only name that comes in my mind. I'm trying to remember it now, but it's not
Pascal's wager.
Pascal's wager doesn't work in Islam. Yeah, that's how. It's too early yet too late for me. I need to go to bed.
All right, we have a super chat or super sticker from Robert Lawrence. Thank you very much for $10.
Yeah, 63.3. Can you read your notes here, please? 63.
All right. Because they professed faith and then rejected it, so their hearts have been sealed and they do not understand. And then my note is, so I'm guessing this label applies to all ex-Muslim apostates?
It does apply to ex-Muslim apostates, provided they outwardly present as Muslim. To qualify for the title of munafiq, you actually have to present as a Muslim but not believe.
Aha.
Right? So the not believe part applies to ex-Muslim because they don't believe, right? But for ex-Muslims that are sitting in front of me, they're not munafiq because they're openly not Muslim.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So you're not hiding the fact that you don't believe. You're actually openly saying, I don't believe. Munafiqs will say, oh, I believe, Allah Akbar, everything is there, right? And you believe them because what else can you do? You can't see that, you can't x-ray them because x-ray was not invented, and you can't see that stamp over their heart. That's why they can figure you out when you go visit their Kaaba because they x-ray you. 63.5.
Hold on. I just want to ask something about 63.4.
Yes.
So this one to me seems a little bit like projection. It may or may not be a projection, but I think this verse is what fuels modern animosity towards atheists from Muslims. So what do you guys think?
So 63.4 is when you see them prophet, their outward appearance pleases you. When they speak, you listen to what they say, but they are like propped up timbers. They think every cry they hear is against them, and they are the enemy. Beware of them. God may confound them, how devious they are.
Sounds a little like projection, but that could be me reading too much into it.
Right. So those who say they're Muslim, but actually they're not somehow, might look good, you know, like the striptease dancers. They might look good. Right.
No, I paid more attention to that thing about, that they think that every cry they hear is against them.
Yeah.
That reminds me of a whole lot of people.
Right. And in here they mean us. So
But no, I think what it talks about someone who's trying to make believe so they could survive in a hostile environment. Well, it reminds me being in a situation where you're discriminated against, like in a for some reason the Jewish situation during the Nazis, where they were like hiding and trying to run away in different places, even pretending not to be Jews sometimes, just to survive for a little bit. That is the situation, that they are pretending to be Muslims. So the moment someone will find out about them, because we're talking about people that might still have some shrine, some little bit piece of shrine, some still behavior of pre-Islamic behavior, something like that. So they still keep up their religion, trying to keep up their religion, but at the same time they are hiding it from. Imagine someone who's living through the Inquisition, trying to hide from the Inquisition. Jews, Muslims, any sect of non-Catholic Christian who lived through the Inquisition, they had their secret societies, their secret gathering places. They were trying to hide. Anyone would yell at them that to call them out on it, they will be scared. They think it's them. You called me. So I think that's what they're talking about. But I don't know. I don't see the resemblance between it and calling out atheists.
Okay. So then the next verse, is it not a contradiction?
I was asking Aaron to read his notes on 63.5.
I see it as
All
somewhat
right.
of a
So they turn their
contradiction.
heads away in disdain when they are told, "Come, so that the messenger of God may ask forgiveness for you." And you see them walking away arrogantly. It makes no difference whether you ask forgiveness for them or not. God will not forgive them. God does not guide such treacherous people. So remember that the Quran said earlier that God is infinitely merciful, ever pardoning, all forgiving, the Lord of mercy, giver of mercy. Remember also that it said repeatedly that it is God who decides who will believe and who will not. So he is neither merciful nor forgiving nor just.
Yeah, but not only that, but you're not supposed to pray for the unbelievers. And here it's saying that, come, the messenger of Allah will pray for you. Well, some of them say pray, some of my versions, others say he will ask forgiveness for you. So,
And it won't work even if he did.
Yeah,
but
that's the
you're
thing.
not supposed to do that.
That's
No,
the
you
thing.
don't know they are not.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
there's somebody doing bad things, and then you are asking for forgiveness for them. But because they didn't believe in the first place, and you didn't even know that and ask forgiveness for them, Allah will not forgive them because Allah know that they are actually unbelievers masquerading as believers.
So you,
But
you may not know.
yeah,
This is a Shakespearean level, okay?
yeah,
So
Okay.
and you have to remember this surah came in effect after Surah An-Nur, which is the other surah that talks about people accusing the wife of Muhammad of being unfaithful. So there are some people that Muhammad called like hypocrites or like non hiding their non-belief, and people will ask them like go ask forgiveness from the prophet because you were talking about his wife. Why don't you go ask for forgiveness? And they're like, I didn't talk to her. So they walk away. So that situation, because if you read 7, it talks about specific people. Of course, the Quran don't name them because in the historical narrative, those people had some power, still had some power in Medina, even if it's very limited. They still have some people following them, just for their familiar status. So so they will tell people don't spend money on the people on Muhammad because they, even though they are poor, they pretend to be poor, they get the money that Muhammad gets. So don't spend money on them, spend it somewhere else. um and Muhammad didn't like that.
okay.
Yeah.
Yay, 63.7. Your notes, please.
They are the ones who say, "Give nothing to those who follow God's messenger until they abandon him, but to God belong the treasures of the heavens and the earth." Though the hypocrites do not understand this. They say, "Once we return to Medina, the powerful will drive out the weak." But power belongs to God, to his messenger, and to the believers, though the hypocrites do not know this.
Yeah.
And you wanted me to read my notes on that?
Yes, please.
All right. I keep reading that the Quran as if it's supposed to be a message from the creator of the universe to all humanity for all time. And then verses like this remind me that no, it is provincial, limited culturally, academically, geographically, and temporally, being written by 7th century Arabs for 7th century Arabs, as if everyone everywhere else doesn't even exist.
Yeah. So this is a very potent argument for the things that the Quran doesn't mention, it doesn't show knowledge of their existence, and it could have, right? In a lot of places, the verbiage is there. We know it's there because it's been used otherwise, and the Quran doesn't even mention the thing. So, anyways, that's my last note on 63, unless
We had a
somebody
question
has.
also.
Yes.
Someone named G asks, says, I thought Muhammad couldn't intercede on behalf of someone else.
Oh, yes, he
Yeah,
could.
that's
That he wouldn't intercede on behalf of the unbelievers. That's just one pragma in this whole thing. Any Muslim can intercede for any other Muslim for any reason they want.
yeah,
What
that,
is
that was my
what?
point.
Yeah. So Muhammad is not special in this case. What is special is that even if Muhammad interceded for somebody who is a hypocrite, that hypocrite is not going to get any mercy from Allah, because Allah knows that the hypocrite is hypocrite. Muhammad may not know it, neither would the other Muslims. They must still pray for him, but he's not going to be spared hellfire because Allah knows he's a hypocrite and therefore he gets nothing.
Right. So to clarify in here, it's not that Muhammad is interceding for an unbeliever. He doesn't know that, but
Right,
Allah does.
right, right. So Muhammad is just sitting there and said, oh, that guy did something horrible. You know what? Allah forgive him, you know? And he moves on. He thinks Allah will forgive him now, but Muhammad doesn't know that that person who did that horrible thing is actually an unbeliever wearing a believer's skin.
Yeah. This is
Right?
going to be repeated further on.
Right.
Yeah, and
This is the essence of al-munafiq, right? This is he looks like a Muslim, he smells like a Muslim, he walks like a Muslim, and he talks like the Muslim, but he's not a Muslim.
that's what most. But so yesterday, this is a little bit outside, but we'll connect in a minute. So yesterday, apostate prophet had a debate with a Muslim about is it right to kill ex-Muslim, execute them, and there's an after show after that, not on the same channel, another channel, and I was listening to it, and they had a Muslim guy there, and he said they should ex-Muslim should not pronounce their ex being ex-Muslim. Basically, what he wants us to be is to be munafiqeen. He wants us to hide it and be hypocrites about our religion or our beliefs, which is one of the funniest things that I ever heard from a Muslim, because he's okay with killing ex-Muslim as long as they say they are ex-Muslim, and he disdains munafiqeen and hypocrite. So it's like either way, you're doomed if you do, and you're doomed if you don't.
Right. It's only more convenient for him.
Yes, it's not
If we
convenient for
stay-
anyone else but him.
Right. It's only convenient for him if we stay hidden. It makes no difference for us.
Mm-hmm.
We're going exactly to the same hell, exactly the same way, whether we looked like Muslims or didn't.
Yeah, and
Right.
and the thing is, it's the main guy, the main story behind this surah, especially, is this guy named Abdullah ibn Ubay, who was in the story goes that he almost was crowned king of Medina, of Yathrib, before Muhammad showed up. The moment Muhammad showed up, he ruined basically his status because he took the leadership, and he always resented Muhammad for that. You might read more about it, and of course, Muhammad needed an antagonist, just how much God needed this, like Satan as an antagonist of the story. So when Muhammad was in Mecca, he had Abu Lahab, he had Abu Jahl, all those two people like as antagonists. So when he moved to Medina, he had the Jews and had Abdullah ibn Ubay, the other antagonist of the story. Just like any good made up story, you need good people and bad people.
So OBS from 1400 years ago, you say?
Exactly.
The king of Mecca? Okay. All right. So next surah is 58.
And we have a super chat in here also.
Yeah.
So I've got some pattern machine for $6.66 says, saying Allah does not forgive the hypocrite is an attempt to excuse the fact that prayer does not work.
Of course it is.
And you know what? He doesn't even need to excuse it. He could say that I will forgive you in the afterlife, and that's it. You be good in the afterlife. I'll get rewarded. That if anyone asks me for money, I will tell them that I will give them back their money in the afterlife.
So I want to give my interpretation of this next surah, at least the first verse, and I want you guys, my peers, to tell me if I'm reading too much into it or being too irreverent. So okay, so this,
yes,
yeah,
too irreverent for this show.
Irreverent.
well,
What's that? We don't do that. Come on, we're very reverent.
anyway, the this refers to a specific woman. Her name was Kaula bin Talaba, or I hope I'm not butchering too much the name.
Khawla, by the way.
Kaula. Oh, okay. So this was an elderly woman, or I don't know how elderly, and she was having problems with her husband. This is from a hadith or tafsir, I think. And she went to Muhammad, and she wanted like his opinion. She wanted help from him, and he kept giving her the same answer. Like, I haven't received any revelation on this regard. So she kept praying to Allah and kept insisting. And what I think, I usually give a like quote something, but this time this is my interpretation. I think what Muhammad did was sort of a Peter Popov thing. He was like, "Oh, wait. Okay, fine. I'm getting a revelation. Yeah. I'm getting a revelation from Allah." And came this surah that reads blah blah blah, which abolishes the practice of the zihar, which is, by the way, different from the triple talaq. So, do you guys think this is kind of what he did? Like, this woman was bothering him, and he was like, okay, I have a direct line to God. He's giving me a surah right now, and that's why this surah is here.
Right. So this is like when your computer throws an hourglass at you, right? And you have to wait a minute until it finishes and say, "Oh, I've got a revelation now ready for you," right? Now, what he said in response to what she was debating him on is not completely bad. This is a stupid habit that people, yes, this is a stupid habit that people used to do to divorce their wives, is that they call them like, "You are my mother now." But there are many I'm holding back a little bit, but I'm going to put some stuff on the table so that we get a better picture. So you could just divorce her and be done, right? The point is, before Islam, there was this practice of, if you didn't like the woman because she was like getting old or whatever, you can call her so ugly, like the back of my mother, and I'll never touch you again.
Is that what the back of my mother?
Yes, I think that's what the back of the mother means here. She is a leathery hag, and I despise you.
So you're insulting your own mother there.
You're insulting your wife very badly. Yes.
But you're insulting
also
your mother too.
Also your mother. But you're not supposed to.
I didn't see a single translation that was like that. I mean, I read like four translations, and they all say that reference is supposed to say that you are like my mother, meaning, I guess, somebody that I love, but somebody who I would not have sex with. That's what all four translations gave that. But what was confusing is, why would it be, okay, so you are like my mother, that's one thing, but you are like my mother's back. That makes no sense.
That's because your mother's front might still look nice.
I'm sorry, that doesn't make any sense either. By the way, Peter, we have somebody, you posted a question here, somebody for an ex-Muslim wanting to join the panel. Can you set up an email contact to do that?
Hold on. I've already said in the chat that he can email me, so I can keep an eye on that, and then maybe send him the link if you want to have him to join.
Very good. Very good. And then we have some questions posted here. Ishak Ibrahim brought two. Says, I hope the team will be able to answer my question. Is there anywhere in Islamic scriptures that indicated that Allah know about northern latitude where the sun doesn't set?
No.
Not from my reading.
No.
That's what I said 2 episodes ago.
Had no freaking idea.
The response is the knowledge of the Quran is limited to what people in the 7th century Arabia knew. Nothing more, nothing less. All the stories in the Quran are very well-known stories in Arabia, either by Christian or Jews beforehand, before the Quran even talked about them or hinted about them. So.
And then he brought a second question, which is the same question paraphrased. How did Islam explain prayer times in upper latitudes without using a clock? And I don't think there is an explanation for upper latitudes.
There isn't. What happens is if you can't figure it out by reading the book, and you can't find any hadith to support this or that, because northern latitudes did not exist back in the day. So people didn't know about this.
Yeah, I've seen a map that shows it shows a world map, but it shows this tiny little red circle, and it says everything with that happened in the Bible happened within this circle. Yeah. And the Quran has a similar circle. It's almost the same circle, but I've seen a map that says the same thing. So that their awareness appears to be just this tiny area. And it's funny because I was talking to somebody from Somalia once upon a time. We're talking about world geography, and she had like absolutely no clue about Somalia, or she had no clue about world geography, right? She was complaining. She's here in the United States, and she says, "What's wrong with this country? That it is sometimes hot and sometimes cold." And I said, "You mean summer and winter?" And she goes, "Yeah. What's up with that?" And I said, "Well, everywhere has summer and winter." And then she barked back at me. She goes, "No, it's not like that in Eritrea, not in Somalia, not in Pakistan, only in America."
You ruined your own weather. It's your fault.
Here's what she did, right? She's describing the whole world, and she describes only her little circle, almost that very circle that we're talking about right now, right? Eritrea, Somalia, Pakistan. Right? So she's like a little bit of water is in her circle, and that's it. And I had to show her on a map. You know, you're talking about this area right here. Look at the whole rest of the world. Now, this part is in winter when this part is in summer, and she was having difficulty with that.
Is that possible, though? Is it true the Australians are upside down? Whoa. Okay. So this practice is basically the way it looks like a divorce, but Muhammad is abolishing it in this surah. So let's see what happens. So
my main problem with this is that it looks to me as if he just made this up to appease this woman, and I know a lot of Muslims might find that disrespectful, but it's that's my interpretation, granted, but it looks to me like it's only to appease this. Otherwise, he wouldn't be here. He wouldn't have abolished.
Most rulings from Muhammad is only to appease one person or one question that someone asked him about. If you read anything, there's someone asked him about this, and he was like, "Oh, I'm having a revelation now. Oh yeah, I have to change it."
Yeah, exactly.
He would go this way before he started fighting in the war. They didn't have anything about dividing money to people who was gonna fight, because they had zakah and they had sadaqah that got to poor people, families, and stuff, but they didn't have anything to deal with fighters. After he started building a state and fighting people, he started actually taking that money and using it to arm his men. So he's changing any moment he wanted to change, because he have a connected line with God. He could get any revelation today and change it. Well, when he was alive. So that's the situation. If you go ask him, just like when someone came and asked him, where does the sun goes after it set down on us? He said, it goes to hide underneath the prostrate underneath the throne of God.
Right. So the next
So,
two
like,
verses,
yeah.
yeah. So the next two verses is the revelation about what this situation is. What happened? We are having a feedback.
What's that?
That looks
what
like a
is that?
feedback.
Okay, just give me a second.
Okay, so 58.2 and 58.3 is where the revelation is about this subject. So those who pronounce this back of the mother situation at their wives, they are wrong and their pronunciation is invalid, right? And it is so invalid, in fact, that this is a pretty stiff punishment, if you're going to ask me. So it explains that your mothers are only the ones that gave birth to you, which is kind of an interesting argument to be had. So no stepmothers, they don't work that way. And in the 58.3, so those who do it and then recant it, because they basically effectively leave Islam when they do it, so they have to recant and undo what they did, right? There is a set of punishments that they have to perform, at least one of them. And the punishments in detail is freeing a slave. That's number one. Like, you have to free a slave when you do that. If you don't have a slave, because what are you doing not having a slave? Then you have to fast for 2 consecutive months. It's hard enough to fast for 1 month.
Is it possible to survive in the desert fasting that long?
No.
2 consecutive months, it probably will kill you.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's the maximum that you can live without food.
Especially taken that fast is like Islamic fast. So no water, no food from dawn to dusk. And of course, you're not going to touch your wife because you're effectively divorced.
Wait, not even water?
Not even water. You can't drink coffee.
Is it not till sunset though?
What did till sunset? Yes, from dawn to dusk. Yeah. So until sunset, and you can't drink water. In modern days, you can't have cigarettes, and you can't use air conditioners in many stringent places. So it's too harsh, especially in a hot environment. Anyways,
I just have to say that the air conditioner piece, like I haven't heard about it before, because I lived in Saudi Arabia.
Yes,
Till the age of 10, and like everything is air conditioned.
you are not wrong. This is a relatively narrow view of what mukayyifat is.
Yeah. I don't know what the situation is with your sound, Mohammed. The best suggestion I could make is that you reboot, and you should come, right back. All right.
Yeah,
So,
I try to mute and unmute. I'm not really sure what's the problem, but
Yeah.
is it like
Well,
chipping?
right now it's not happening. Go figure.
huh?
Yeah. Don't
Okay.
get it.
So the mukayyifat is forbidden during fast, which is generally agreed upon.
Is it a Shi'i like view?
Don't think it's specifically Shia view. what I think is, if you are like, if having cool air-conditioned air is okay, if you like it, then you can't have it. That if anything that you like is going to happen while you're fasting, then you can't have it. So you can't have water.
I'm not defending or anything. All I'm saying is, like, this is, I never heard it, right? I used to fast till like 10 years ago, and I know about, of course, food and water, and like smoking, medication, even the eye droplets, and even, you know, these devices that asthma people have.
Yeah.
We used to have a lot of controversy about them, but the air conditioning bit, I haven't heard before.
I knew people who, when Ramadan came in the summer, they turned off their air conditioning.
Yeah, all I'm saying is it's probably not a mainstream view.
I don't think it is either, but if you see it, if you hear about it, it's not unheard of. This is happening, right?
I got a comment in the chat asking Muhammad to introduce himself.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, sure. I'm Mohammed Al-Habash. I'm originally from Syria. I was a devout Muslim for as long as
your sound issues come back. I think it's related to the
feedback.
microphone.
Your microphone is too close to the speaker.
Oh yeah, I'm using a laptop. Perhaps if I use a headset, it will get better. Okay, I'm gonna go grab a headset and be back.
And then we'll resume the introduction
Yeah.
after that.
Yeah, for sure. So the punishment, I can go on the punishment. I don't think it affects this introduction. So fasting for 2 consecutive months, and cannot be done then if he can't do it because it's just too much. Remember, you're fasting 2 consecutive months after Ramadan. So on that year, you're fasting 3 months. I don't think anybody can survive that.
Yeah. Crocodiles would not survive that.
No.
Especially in the desert.
And the third option, like, you can't do this, you can't do that. You have to feed 60 poor people. Now, this is not an unlimited and unspecified thing. This is a quantified, and it's quantified elsewhere. So how much food qualifies for a meal, and how much meal should a poor person have. And now you have to do that 60 times over. Generally, you don't actually have to perform the task of going around finding 60 poor people and feeding them. What you do is make a food donation to the, tax house or whatever. And
this was mentioned in Surah 4 as well, by the way.
Right. So they'll do the distribution for 60, right? But they'll tell you, we need 2 bushels of grain and 3 cows. And then you give them 2 bushels and 3 cows, and you can go back to your wife.
Yeah, the standard, whenever it says feed someone for this amount of days, you could basically give out what deemed a sustainable amount for 1 day in that region. So if you want to be sneaky a little bit, nowadays you could do it. You could go to somewhere where they don't have a lot of food and give it there, rather than going somewhere where they have a lot of food on a daily basis, and you could do it there. The other thing, they say for feeding, when it's not limited for time, they mean a feeding for a year, which means that you have to give them enough food or equivalent of it, monetary equivalent of it, that sustain them for a whole year of feeding.
All right.
All of this was.
Am I audible now?
Much better.
Yeah, you sound good.
Yeah.
You sound good now.
Okay, perfect. So I'm just gonna introduce myself a quick. I'm Mohammed Al-Habash. I'm originally from Syria. I've spent first 10 years in my life in Saudi Arabia. I was your typical Salafi, you could say. Going back home, I was religious till 25, let's say. 25 years old, and the more questions I have, at the beginning you learn how to numb these questions, but eventually you reach a point where once you start asking questions, there's no going back. It took me like 8 years, but I'm finally out of it, enjoying life as much as I could, and I'm currently in Canada.
All right. Well, welcome aboard, Muhammad. We have a
Thank you.
super chat from Mortanius, which is 10 euros. It says, Allahu Akbar, everyone. I'm waiting for the part where Aaron reaches the final surah, becomes convinced, and finally converts to Islam and says, Li ilaha. I've no idea. Yeah, I can't say that. It's
La ilaha
somebody else
illallah.
has to translate that.
La ilaha
Yes.
illallah. There's no God but Allah.
Ah, gotcha.
Because that's how you become a Muslim. You testify that Allah is Allah and Muhammad is his prophet, and that makes you a Muslim.
Yep.
Basically.
The first pillar of Islam.
Yeah. Okay, so third part, we discussed the punishment for, calling your wife like this. And meanwhile, you're performing the punishments, you are effectively divorced. So you cannot touch your wife while this situation is on. Now, if you're fasting, you can't touch your wife until you've done the 2 months, the 3 months consecutive fast. If you are, collecting the food for the 60 poor, your wife is just looking at you from a distance. The easiest way to get back is just tell one of your slaves that he's free now. And if you don't have a slave, well, it sucks to be you.
Yeah, somebody in the comments said that if I had finished reading what I was just trying to read, that I would have become Muslim. And it reminds me of Evil Dead, Army of Darkness. Well, I read it. I may not have gotten every syllable exactly correct, but
Hey, just again, just do it. Say it in case, just like someone getting baptized in case Jesus is real. So why not?
Yeah, but then Occam's
Pascal wager.
Pascal's wager gets you.
Yeah.
Because that doesn't work in Islam. Allah knows that you're not believing. You're just hedging your bets. So that
But you kind of have to do it both ways, right? Like you kind of have still to force yourself to believe.
Right. At a certain point, like, how do you know a true believer from a hypocrite? How do you tell? Like, they're both walking in the street. They look like Muslims. They talk like Muslims. They divorce their wives the same way, and they marry four women. You can never tell they're not Muslims.
That to remind me, living in the United States, you could see them a lot, especially on Sundays. You see, turn the TV on any local channel, and you have some priest on TV or some minister on TV preaching. It's the same thing in which one is the true one, which one is just there for the money. Every now and then you will find the one that's there for the money, but basically for me, it's almost all of them are in it for the money. Because I never met a minister after preaching, or even an imam or something, without saying, give some money to the church, to the mosque, to our prayer group, blah, blah, blah. So it's another way of handling and money, asking people for more money. That's the crux of religion, asking people for money.
To the point that we were discussing here, calling your wife off like this does not count as a divorce. So
No.
you still can divorce her 3 times over before she's completely off you, right?
Yeah.
The triple talaq.
Your triple talaq is still sitting there waiting to happen.
Yeah,
Yeah.
this is just the zihar. He
So-
didn't
so
abolish
when-
the other one.
Right.
So if you read the story behind the hadith behind this ayah, the hadith is this old lady come to the prophet and tell him, and it specifically says to him that I gave him my youth and I spread my belly for him. Basically, I gave him when I was pretty for him, he desired me and wanted me to a point where I became pregnant of him. That's what she meant by spreading my belly for him. So now when I'm older, he doesn't want me. So he said that he did the zihar. He said that the zihar. So he doesn't owe me any sexual pleasures, any sexual relationship. So he could and go and have fun with either his sex slave or his newer wife without any sexual obligation between me and him. So she was upset because she's like, it's not just him. I still need it. And he's going to act like he's a stranger. So that's his bullshit. So yeah, it's not a divorce because even if someone like commit zihar against his wife in Islam and he dies before the days comes, she still inherit like a wife. She still get everything like a wife. Zihar is not upholden in Islam, even though if you go ask like an imam or a scholar and ask him, if I make an oath saying that I will not have sex with my wife for a period of time, which is some sort of zihar, should I keep it or should I break it? Some will say break it, some say you should keep your oaths because as we understand in Islam, words have magic and like magical words. If you say the magic word, you become. If you say the magic word, you become Muslim. If you say the magic word, you are divorced. So it's the same thing.
So there is a word in Arabic called jahiliyyah, and I'm not sure how you can translate it in English. I think it's probably something like enlightenment, before enlightenment, or like the age before the prophet.
Age of ignorance.
Age of ignorance, yeah. So zihar was one of these habits in the age of ignorance that Islam forbid.
Yeah.
Yep. So what is else we have here? 7 is my next note.
Oh, I like 7.
I like it too.
All right, I'll read it. Let's see. On 7, do you not see, prophet, that God knows everything in the heavens and earth? There is no secret conversation between 3 people where he is not the 4th, nor between 5 where he is not the 6th, nor between less or more than without him being with them, wherever they may be.
Okay.
Too much
So
Orwellian for you?
Allah is an omni lurker.
Yeah.
He
So,
lurks,
like,
he lurks in every forum.
What does this has to do with the previous verses, though?
Nothing.
Nothing. It's just the next verse. That's all.
But if you notice, the Quran have this habit of dropping verses ayat just because there is a lot of editing in the Quran that doesn't make sense.
Every few verses, when a subject is finished, a new subject is started without, just hey, if you are talking, I'm listening. Even if you didn't invite me, okay, good.
They have no concept of period, right?
Yeah, it remind me of that meme where there's 2 people about to have sex and one of them say I give my consent, the other one says I give my consent, and God or Jesus in the back say I don't. So it's basically the same thing.
We have
It's
some
weird.
super chats to touch on. We got Prophet of the Tardigrades offers 40 Mexican pesos and says, this is important now, says, I bet Bogey has a fly in his Tupperware now.
Oh, yes. Let me check. Actually, let's finish this surah and then I'll check.
Okay.
All right, we will move to the next question. And just to remind the audience, we made a challenge a couple weeks back that
That
God could not create a single fly. So Bogey sealed a piece of Tupperware with no fly in it, with nothing in it except for the air. And
And winter.
And the piece of paper saying, Allah, please put a fly in there. I hope he can read English.
yeah. So, and then you wrote it in English?
Yes,
You
that might
fool,
be a
did you forget
problem.
which God you're talking to?
That might be a problem.
Well, that's explain why there's no fly yet.
Yeah.
Might.
So in the next, there's a question in here. It says, Trevor Wright says, is it possible that the current location of Mecca is wrong and there are any similarities with the Bible and the surahs? Does the Bible mention Muhammad?
The
I think I'm
Bible.
going to answer that one.
Bible doesn't
Okay.
mention Muhammad.
Yeah, Muhammad showed up
700 years after
Well-
the alleged.
Well, that not quite. I mean, the Bible was effectively complete, let's say, 400 years before Jesus, or excuse me, before Muhammad.
Yeah.
So, and contrary to popular belief, the Bible does not accurately predict the future.
Really?
It doesn't show pi.
And it's a little bit shady on the past too. So
A little bit shady.
Shady. I was
know,
reading some numbers, and I think it has predictions in the future.
yeah.
No, I'm
see,
just kidding.
yeah, the Bible did not predict the Muhammad, and there is similarities between the Bible and the Quran, the surahs, that there's repeated characters: Moses, Jesus, Abraham, Joseph. There's people that they talk about in the same people. There is similar stories to the some non-canonical Bibles, like the infant Bible, with the Quran, the stories from the Quran. Mecca's position, we don't know. We assume it is the same place because that is the tradition, and we don't have the reasons that the evidence presented that Mecca have changed or shifted is not sufficient enough. And at least in my understanding, I read Tom Holland and read the Petra case about that Petra was Mecca. There is not enough evidence to say that's true or not, but we need that's the thing. We need to dig and find places around Mecca to find, because if Mecca, which is the Mecca today we know about, is the same place that was Muhammad living in, any evidence of archaeology have been destroyed just for the sheer amount of modernization and the amount of like building going on there. So and they don't care, like they will just go through it. So beyond that's almost all we have. I think that's respond to the question.
By the way, now that you mentioned that, Mohammed, a week ago when you were talking about the Hajj, I asked you, and it was more of a rhetorical question, if that was the spot where Isaac was supposed to be almost sacrificed. My bad. I need to make that correction. It's according to Islam, it's not Isaac the one who almost got sacrificed. It was his brother.
Yeah, the true older brother, the true inheritant of all Abraham wealth, the 2 goats and a tent. That's the thing is, and even in ancient Arabia, there's a competition between Arabs and Jews about who is the true inherit, what they call who inherit the legacy of Abraham. Was it the older son? Even if that was the older son was not from his wife Sarah, but he was from his concubine or his second wife, according to the Arab story. Or is it the second son, the one that he was promised by God? It's a debated topic even prior to Islam. Which one is the true the true kid, the true older son that wasn't gonna inherit.
We have a couple of others. We've got super chat from Why Call Me Lord. That presents $5. Says, for the record, it's Aloha Snack Bar, not Allahu Akbar. And says, thank you, fellow infidels, for spreading the truth. Aaron, we should talk again in the future. Right. Well, why call me Lord? And I've spoken to him before. Maybe when I was religious. I don't know.
No,
Okay, so,
Aaron, I think that's Lord. Why you call me Lord is the Christian guy who told you a story about he was a pastor and then he became an atheist when his car flipped on the highway with his wife, and then I don't know if you remember this.
I did not remember that. I was the handle didn't connect to my memory.
Well, if it is, this is actually one of my favorite episodes of your series, Conversation with Infidels. Please leave where we can find you, because I think I checked your YouTube channel and it was dead like 4 years ago. There was no more uploads. If it's the same guy, please leave your social handles in the chat.
I say,
I have two quick remarks about if Muhammad was mentioned in the Bible. So first one, this is for if there are Muslims listening. Please, guys, if Muhammad was really mentioned in the Bible, don't you say the Bible is corrupted? So it's like you want to have it both ways. And the other thing, this is something I heard recently. I don't know how accurate it is. I want to ask the panel about it, but I don't want to branch into it too much for the sake of the time. But Muhammad means the praised one. So is it true that Muhammad changed his name to that name and that not originally his birth name?
We don't know, because the history of Muhammad and Islam was scrubbed thoroughly. What we have is the Islamic narrative of things. For all I care, Muhammad's dad's name is just unfathomable from a pagan perspective. How could somebody be called Abdullah?
Abdullah, yeah.
Right? How the heck is that even happened? Forget about Muhammad being like he's Muhammad. Okay, so fine. That might be a concept.
Why is that surprising?
Because Abdullah did not exist. That God was not worshipped. They didn't know what it was. Singular Allah? Come on. You're going to call somebody a slave of a singular God in an environment that had a pantheon of gods to worship?
I would argue that
Abdullah exists.
yes, and that's the thing. There is this habit of actually naming your kids after a specific god to grant them protection from that specific or by that specific god. So Abdullah, the father of Muhammad, had a brother called Abdul Shams,
And that makes sense. And that
so
makes
he,
sense.
yeah. So
wait, Abdul Shemp?
Abdul Shams, the slave.
Okay, because I was thinking Abdul Mo, Abdul Shemp, Abdul Curly. I'm sorry, sir. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Well, Shams means
Exactly.
sun. So
Yeah.
it makes sense because they are pagan, right?
Yeah. So if Allah was a name of a god in pre-Islamic Arabic paganism, would make sense that people will name their kids, or it could be the generic name for the god, the ilah or al ilah. They change it. There's a lot of argument. They don't know exactly where the name Allah comes out. The root of the name is not. It might not even be Arabic, but that's a different case.
So ilah means a god in Arabic.
Mhm.
Allah, it's mostly used in the Arabic word now to mean a god, but I don't think that was the case before Islam.
Yeah, I don't think it would make sense, because it is a singular tense. So it would not have escaped them that they live in a world that has multitudes of gods and sometimes even conglomerates of gods. To call somebody a slave of just one god, unspecified Allah, right? Versus they had names for these gods. They actually had proper names for these gods. You can call them Abdul Shams, and it would make total sense. This is people who worship the sun, and well, they call their son the slave of the sun because whatever, right? I mean, it makes sense. But Abdullah doesn't, unless you scrubbed it, turned it into something religiously meaningful after the fact, and now nobody knows any better.
Yeah, before we move on, I've got a couple more comments to read. G Skeptic says, only Allah knows, Bogey. And says,
Yes,
by the way,
indeed.
You got to start accepting crypto because I'm having difficulty trying to giving super chats. So, moving on to super chat from Mika Kiyom or Kiyomi, $4.99. It says, it looks like the smoke from Muhammad's cigar is flowing into the background of the spinning graphic.
Glory be to Allah. That was me on the right corner, so and put the spinning graphic next to me.
Yes.
All right. So, one more above that. I read the one about where location in what? Doug. Okay, I'm not saying because I'm reading from where you were. Okay, there we go. M. Doug for £4.49. If Allah is a lurker, why does he need the angels on each person's shoulders or rocks to report in? Well, that's how he knows everything, is because he has his internet connection where he talks to all of your shoulder angels and dirt.
Yeah, he also taps into your encrypted chats with everybody. 58.8.
Oh, it's still on 58.
Yes,
Yep.
58.8. This is, yeah.
Yes.
58.8. And I did have a bit of difficulty understanding what the Najwa meant here. I found this source, and I think it gave me enough to go on. I pasted the link.
58.8, if I may read it, have you not seen how those who have been forbidden to hold secret conversations go back afterwards and hold them and conspire with one another in what is sinful, hostile, or disobedient to the messenger? When they come to you, they greet you with words God has never used to greet you, and say inwardly, why does God not punish us for what we say? Hell will be punishment enough for them. They will burn there, an evil destination.
Get off my
So-
lawn.
So let me give you my interpretation, because I'm the most likely to be the one who's less likely to be correct. So this appears to refer to some Jews that were being insolent at Muhammad. So what you're supposed to say to him is Assalamu alaikum.
Okay.
And this means peace be upon you, but they twisted the word a little bit and said Assalamu alaikum or something like that.
Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum, and that means death be upon you, or venom. I'm not sure. I was going to ask you guys that. So they changed the word a little bit to be a little insolent, like to be mocking, and they observe how unstruck by lightning they remain. That's my note. So
Okay. So what's the thing with the Najwa being prohibited to somebody? Like, come on. Allah can't hear you if you speak low?
No, I think it means they were mocking the Muslims when they see them. So, like they talk low. Let's say me and Aaron, we are chatting. We see you, Boogie, walking, and we start like talking in a low voice between each other and laughing at you.
Okay.
this is the kind of thing you would see with teenagers.
Yeah. See, or it could happen where it's like both me and Muhammad are Arabs, and we could speak Arabic, and even Bogi. We could start talking in Arabic. Now, Aaron and Antoine, they don't know what's going on. So that's
Yeah.
the situation where those Jews, of course, always the sneaky Jew in the Quran, always have the bad thing going on. So they decide whenever they see the Muslims coming by, they start talking in Hebrew, where the Muslims will not understand it. So it's like, whoa, what's going on? And then they come to Muhammad and tell him, like, basically they change the words and say, death be upon you, or something like this. So it is the situation where do not conspire against other people. It's not against Allah, because Allah already knows, like, oh, whenever you talk, he's there listening to you. So it's against other people. Yeah.
So you think my interpretation is fair?
Your interpretation is actually dead on. That's what Ibn Kathir said in his book, in his tafsir, is about it. That the Jews were doing it.
So Sam means venom, or does it mean death? Or
It means death, because there's another hadith what talks about the black seed and says the black seed, the oil of the black seed heals from any disease but a sam, which means death.
Yeah.
I'm not sure though, for honesty, if it's sam or sam.
I
Which
think
I
it's Sam, but I'm not sure. Yeah, so you're not supposed to make a mockery of your greetings. I get that. What threw me off is, like, it says, Alam tara alladhina nuhu an najwa. Is there a group that is forbidden from practicing najwa? Right? This is what throws me off here. It's like, well, there are people who cannot do that? Really? I don't find it anywhere. And anyways, I think your explanation is better than what I found. So
That well, the thing is that Muhammad had already made a treaty with those Jews that they should not conspire against him. So that I think what it refers to, but I'm not sure.
Well, this is the type of things I was looking for, and I didn't find it anywhere. So I was going like, hey, maybe I asked, right? Anyway, so yes, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
So Allah requires proper greetings. Please be upon you, yada, 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 depending on who you're greeting. 58:12 is abrogated by 58:13, and you figured it out exactly. Well done.
Well, thank you. Just for context, you who believe when you come to speak privately with the messenger, offer something in charity before your conversation. That is better for you and purer. If you do not have the means, God is most forgiving and merciful. And the subsequent note, or the subsequent verse, is, were you afraid to give charity before consulting the prophet? Since you did not give charity and God has relented toward you, you should at least observe your prayers, pay the prescribed alms, and obey God and his messenger. God is well aware of your actions.
That is interestingly very similar to the super chats, by the way.
How so?
Well, they're offering charity
Ah, yes.
before speaking to the prophet.
That's the situation is where a lot of you know those services where you want to talk to some psychic or someone and you have to pay for them. That's exactly it. If you want your special service with Muhammad, you have to pay for it.
Yeah,
That
what I
reminds
got
me,
from,
there is a psychic down the street, and I've been meaning for years to go in there and have a reading. Just dress differently than I normally would, act a little differently than I normally would, and see how that reading goes.
It's interesting. There's a psychic shop here in my town as well, and it's been closed for a while because of COVID, so nobody knows the future.
Yeah.
Yeah, so what I got from this verse is that people started asking Muhammad stuff. They were bothering him increasingly. So Allah saw this and decided to help him by revealing the surah and restricting the consultations. Now, I asked a Muslim, and he told me that this was not really to restrict the amount of consultations that he gets, but more like to make people value their time with Muhammad.
Yeah, Islam invented super chat. There you go.
Either or, just it's a what do you call post hoc explanation. It's not in the text. So the text itself says that you have to pay. It didn't say about money. It doesn't say about time. Value your time with the Prophet.
You think?
It doesn't. It says just pay money before you talk to him. And the story is actually that he was overwhelmed with people keep coming and asking him for personal advices and stuff. So he came up with this, and for a week no one came bothered him. Actually, the only one that even did it was his cousin slash son-in-law. He's the only one that decided to pay money and talk to him because he wanted to talk to his father-in-law, and he couldn't even just go talk to him. He had to pay money before he could talk to his father-in-law. So I know some people that will pay money not to talk to their father-in-law, but that's a different case.
Okay, that was my last note for Surah 58, and we can go to Surah 49 after that if nobody has anything else to add.
Yep.
I want to read one more question that came up. Well, actually, there's two here, I think.
Oh, and wait a second. I'm getting...
Go grab your fly.
Yep.
Yes. I'm getting the fly.
Okay, what are the questions?
The one question from Johan Armin, and it says, how did they write about Jesus spending 40 days and nights in the desert after Jesus died a few hundred years later, when Jesus himself was only there in the desert with no scribes? Well, I think
It's just like the ground. It's just like the Groundhog Day.
Okay.
You figure out where the groundhog does. Here is the box. Here's the paper in it. Can you see the fly?
Is that not a fly?
No, this is not a fly. This is just a color marker so that they don't mix the lid with the bottom. According to the manufacturer. That's my message to Allah right in there. It says, please put a fly in this box. I can actually open it now, since we are pretty sure the fly is not going to escape because it's not in there.
Well, while you're at it, write on Arabic on the piece of paper.
Well, because Allah should understand all languages, right?
Yeah, but he obviously doesn't.
And don't forget, he also he had to send the Quran in 7 different dialects. So that tell you something.
Yes. Well,
Yeah.
Our box
I was not aware
empty.
of that. Thank you, Muhammad. I had no idea about that.
Oh yeah. So this is one of the I don't know if you heard about this hadith, but basically there were two companions of the Prophet. One of them was reciting one of the verses on the Quran, and the other guy heard it and he was perplexed because he knows it in another way. So he literally grabbed that other person by her clothes and dragged him to the Prophet. And he told him he's reciting it in a different way. So, and that was by the end of the life of the Prophet. And the Prophet asked the first one to recite, and he said, that's correct. And asked the other guy to recite and said that's correct. And then he said, God sent the Quran in seven different recitation to make it easier for the tribes in Quraysh. So, for example, someone from the North in America, let's say Alabama, has a different accent from someone who's living in Texas or Houston, and they are supposedly can understand each other. So God sent 7 different dialects. It's just a way to show probably Muhammad was forgetting about the Quran, and he said it multiple different ways, and people quote to it at the end of his life.
Yeah,
Muhammad is getting old at that time.
Yeah, that's the thing about the 7 ahruf. It's another excuse to the fact that the Quran did not line up. That's why the moment Muhammad died, everyone started fighting and everyone didn't like what's going on. And immediately the first caliph decided to collect the book and collect the ayat and put it in one book, make a mushaf, a codex. And then the third caliph decided to even unite, like delete all other qira'at and not just qira'at, it destroy other codex that did not match the Uthmanic, which we have today is the Uthmanic codex. That there was ayat and there is surah that have been deleted, omitted out of the codex because they didn't find it in other codex.
Right. So to the point, we are aware that a lot of these historic references are probably scrubbed and made up. But for a Muslim to interact with this conversation, we have to keep it as is for them.
Yeah.
Right. Like if I say the entire history of Muhammad was made up, then we have nothing to talk about. Right.
Yeah, but I think it would be interesting, like to do one episode, one show, and on my behalf, I need to make some research about it, but to check the contradictions between the different qira'at, because there's first of all, is there a specific number for it? Because there's so many different qira'at. It's more than 10.
There are different ratings of it, and
in most cases
it just sounds different.
Yeah, if you're talking about the qira'at, there is 7 major qira'at, and then there's 14 minor, which they have differences of how to pronounce the word. They don't change the codex, except when it comes down to how they present the letter and writing. There is 2 ways to write the Quran nowadays. There's one very common in the East, which is like led by started in the 1800s by the Egyptian, and they made this Quran, which is almost exactly all the Qurans you find anywhere because Saudi Arabia print it and they give it for free to all mosque and stuff. And then you have the Moroccan Quran, which they write it to be read by a different way. But the qira'at is not the difference is the codex. The ahruf is different. It's almost a different language, and totally like it's non-comprehensible between the two readers that there is an addition and subtraction in both codex. So it's more complex, but it's something that Muslim will acknowledge because it's in their text. In the readings, there is stuff that a lot of Muslims don't read about it because they don't get taught about it until you are higher in education in Islam. The differences between the qira'at and why one is better than the other, and that the fact that even the one that wrote down the different qira'at did not listen to any of them, and he decided to write his own way of writing because there is grammatical mistakes in the Quran, there is like spelling mistake in the Quran, so he tried to fix it.
So there's I've been listening to a Christian apologist, not that I believe in Christianity, but because there's kind of blind spots as people where they can dig flaws in other people's religions, but they can't see it in their own. And he's been talking about Qira'at for so long. Need to bring his name. I think his name is Dr. James. But long story short, he showed that there's like at least 112 different words between, let's say, Hafs and Warsh narrations. And some of them are the dots, and some of them are tashkil. I don't know how to explain this word in English, but they make the words different. And one example I can think of when they talk about the والشمس تجري and the sun moves لمستقر لها to a certain destination, and there's another narration which says the sun moves لا مستقر لها. There's no destination for it. So that's like a clear contradiction between the two. I don't want to diverge about this topic, but I feel like it's worthy of a discussion of its own, because Hafs, which is the most widely accepted or known narration of Quran, the person was not trusted with hadith, and he's known to be a liar. So there are these type of things that I feel a lot of Muslims need to know eventually down the road, because they believe in their book that it's holy and it's one. And no, there's a lot of people, it would be a disaster for them to know that there's multiple Qurans, but not a lot of people know that. I'm sorry I'm getting off topic, but like I felt I had to speak about that.
I have to read another question. So we have Trevor Wright says, what is the role of Mahdi in the Quran? And what is the point of Messiah anyway?
Very good question. Al-Mahdi is kind of a Messiah, if you like. He's the enlightened one. The name reflects that. He's a Mahdi. He's the guided one. And
he's John the Baptist to Jesus.
Right. Yes, with a little bit of Islamic connotations in there. Islam tends to breed Mahdis pretty much in a consistent way. Mahdi was the one who repelled the British from Sudan and then got defeated after that. Mahdi is this. There are several historical Mahdis. The Shiites have at least 2 or 3 of them. It's basically what the religion, it's a religious leader who is going to revive the religion, who is going to do those things, and then is going to drive out the heathen from the country, and it's going to do that, and it's going to be the enlightened one. Whether it's actually the final one, nobody can say, right? And as a matter of fact, every few hundred years, if not less, Islam tends to breed 1 or 2 of these.
But one aspect for sure is Al-Mahdi only comes at the last days.
For the conceptual one, yes.
Yeah.
For the conceptual one, yes. But the fact that the theology breeds this personality from now and then is a thing, right? It does.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and the latest one that I know of is I think the one in the 70s that actually took control of Mecca, the mosque in Mecca, and killed people there, and we claim that he is the Mahdi, and it's really a pivoting point of the history of Saudi Arabia, because before that Saudi Arabia was leaning more toward liberalism, and after that Saudi Arabia become more conservative, because to appease the other side they try to become more conservative, and as a state in general. But if you read the theology of Islam, they have Mahdis, they have Mujaddid, and they have all kinds of people that come and revive the deen.
Yeah, so in a Christian parallel, it's the second coming of a Jesus Christ. Seems to happen every 2 weeks in Christianity.
So if the first coming of Jesus Christ needed a John the Baptist to baptize people and make sure they're okay, ready for Jesus, so the second coming in Islam, Jesus needed John the Baptist, and John the Baptist is the Mahdi.
And isn't he supposed to fight the Masih al-Dajjal?
Yeah,
know.
the Antichrist.
Yeah, but that you need a
Antichrist,
Dajjal for him to fight him. So you need an antagonist for this.
And the Mahdi is not in the Quran. It's not mentioned in the Quran.
Right.
It's
That's
in
why.
Hadith.
That's why
Yeah.
I use this nebulous concept that it just the theology breaches. It's not really written
Yeah.
in.
Yeah.
Right. So you'll never find anything like this in the Quran, and I doubt any of it is in Hadith, because that would be a contravening to the authority of Muhammad if the Mahdi existed in his time. So
Yeah.
it would have to be way after Muhammad, and this is the end of days. And now the Mahdi is here, and now we're going to do the religion again, right? So, yeah.
We have another question from G Skeptic. It says the 7 dialects argument is problematic because some of the so-called accents didn't exist, and Islam hasn't reached where they're spoken now yet.
Yes, true. It's just a hyperbole.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it makes sense to have 7 different languages, not accents. You know,
But how many different languages, how many different accents, how many different slangs do you have just in the Islamic world, right?
Yeah.
7 is not the number. It's just a hyperbole. Muhammad told. It's by the way, it was Umar ibn Khattab who was dragging the other guy, and he was going to kill him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess Muhammad, slow the horses. You know, are we dropped out? It says,
Peter, what are you doing?
I still can't hear you.
I can hear you guys, but I don't know what's going on.
the picture is
Yeah,
out.
Peter, what's happening?
Let's Photoshop out. Okay.
Oh, we're back. All right. So,
I clicked on a link and it opened in the wrong screen. My apologies.
It's okay,
Yeah.
Peter.
that's Allah.
Yep.
Beating
Let's
on your
let's
head.
we have been kind of flying somewhere else. Let's get back to the
Let's go
surah.
back to the
Yes, we've got 2 surahs to chew through.
Let's go.
49, the rooms.
The rooms.
The rooms, and what do you know what the rooms are?
49 is not the room, Hujurat. I thought you meant the Romans.
No, the rooms.
Okay.
The Romans. Yeah, the Romans are there too.
There is a surah called.
I know.
Yeah. Yeah,
No, this is
we
the
we
one
already
that-
went through it.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go.
So 49,
So you're not supposed.
my first note is actually 49.6.
Hold on. In 6, you said?
Yes, 6. Unless you
Okay,
have
yeah.
something before that.
Okay. No, I was just gonna say you're supposed to be reverent to Muhammad. Don't. You already said this. You're not supposed to call him Muhammad. You're supposed to call him Prophet or
Right.
something.
That's why I skipped the whole thing. Okay, yeah, sure, we know that.
Anyway, 6.
Old story, and Aaron got it right anyway. So I was
Yeah.
okay. I have nothing to add to that, right? Because we're working through Aaron's work, understanding the Quran. Now we're looking at things that we can add to it, or things that has gone wrong, or things that can be explained differently and understood better. So
Right.
So
So
that
I do have a note about 6.
yes,
This is and I didn't see.
I just wanted Aaron to read his notes, and he just stepped out, so he's back.
Yeah, I'm back. I had to deal with something real quick. Okay, so we're at 49.6.
49.6, and I want your notes, please.
Okay, so 49.6. The verse is: believers, if a troublemaker brings you news, check it first, in case you wrong others unwittingly and later regret what you have done. And my note is: but how are we supposed to fact check the troublemaker in question? How are we supposed to fact check when the troublemaker in question is a desert bandit and warlord who professes to be God's messenger, and all of God's alleged messages are unsupported assertions?
Right. So this one is another example of those stories that are left out, and you're supposed to already know. This is what happened with the tribe of Banu al-Mustalik. And this was Muhammad sent some guy whose name I don't remember to collect taxes from this tribe. And he, as he arrived, he thought he was going to get assaulted or attacked. I don't know. So he got scared and he left. And he was, I think there was going to be some form of retaliation, but then somebody clarified it because they weren't really going to attack him or something like that. It's a story that is left completely out of.
They were checking his credentials.
Oh, they were.
Somebody,
So it was about zakah. So the Prophet, and this is on top of my head, but the Prophet sent Al-Walid bin Aqaba to Al-Harith, and he asked him to collect zakah. So Al-Harith wanted, I'm not really sure if he said, we're not gonna pay and we're gonna kill you or something along these lines, right? So Al-Walid went back to the Prophet and told him that. So when Al-Harith went back to the Prophet to meet him, the Prophet told him, did you really said you're not going to pay zakah and you want to kill me? And he said, no, that didn't happen. And that's why the verse was, the divine came.
Yeah,
G.
what I read
Skeptic
is-
comments says Muhammad, it's a recitation, not narration, but I get what you mean.
Yeah, correct. It's a recitation.
Yes.
So they were coming at him like menacingly. That's what I got. I don't know what your opinion is on that, Mohammed.
Yeah, no, this is just about like if somebody claims they are the prophet of God, you should be skeptical, except when you shouldn't be, right? It's that problem of when do you believe what is not supported by evidence. 49.9 is my next point, unless there is something in between.
If two groups of believers fight, you believers should try to reconcile them. If one of them is clearly oppressing the other, fight the oppressors until they submit to God's command. Then make a just and even-handed reconciliation between the two of them. God loves those who are even-handed.
Yeah, so this is not a bad verse, aka make peace between each other. That kind of makes sense, right? It's that like you join the furry and figure out who's right and who's wrong. Good luck with that. Yep, groups.
So it's basically try to avoid tribal conflict and a little bit.
Right. I
skirmish.
mean, it does
Yeah.
make sense in a bracketed way. Yes, this is what
Yeah.
you should do.
Yeah, you
If
asked me
you-
to read my notes on that. I said we just read in Surah 58 that no woman can be your mother except the one who gave birth to you, but somehow any man can be your brother as long as they were duped by the same nonsense that you were.
Yes. Which surah is this?
That was 10. It was 49:10. You
Okay,
asked me to
yes.
read 9, but my note was on 10.
Oh yeah. Okay.
So I just want to ask a question. Is there really a differentiation in Quran when it mentions believers versus it mentions Muslims?
Generally, there isn't.
Yeah.
Right. The exception might be Al-Munafiqeen chapter, because that's when it actually details the difference between a Muslim who might be a munafiq and a mu'min who will not be a munafiq.
Yeah, but okay. Well, I have a comment on that, but it's on a coming verse, so not yet.
Okay, so believers are brothers. Yep, you got it. 49:10. Make peace between brothers, and your point is good. Now your mother wasn't your mother because you just called her mother, but yeah. 49:11. So no bad name calling. This basically taken as to only call each other by the names they approve of, and not call them with crappy names and nicknames. Yeah.
Use proper pronouns.
Right.
It just doesn't make sense for me, like why the Quran has to mention this.
Because a lot of people, it's a thing, like people do that. They call
Yeah.
each other stupid names, like for example, Shorty. Okay.
Yeah.
And they may not like it. Now, if I like being called Shorty, then fine, call me Shorty, right? I'll be okay with it, and it will not fall under this verse, right? But if somebody is a limbish, right, one of his legs is shorter than the other, and then you call him the gimp, and he doesn't like it, then you're not okay according to this verse to do so, right?
No, you don't call him the gimp. You call him Timur Lane.
Right.
So
I think gimp means something different now.
yeah,
Right, I know. But again, like I'm just trying to give an example of you may call people names they may not like. Right now, if they don't particularly mind, you can call them that name. We know a lot of people who had bloody stupid names, and they like it, and they're just fine. You can call them that, right?
yeah, and the fact is, basically, stop the mockery between you. It talks about people mocking other people, and it uses the word qawm, which mean a group of people, not just individual. So prior to that, you have your tribal pride. So you say, "Oh, my tribe is better than your tribe," or "My tribe beat your tribe last time in the fight." Something like that. Stop doing that. So it's the situation where you don't mock individual, you don't mock groups. Of course, it's it's crazy because we know the Quran actually mocks other groups. The Quran calls non-believers donkeys and dogs, animals. So it's a contradiction, you could say there, but it's the same thing. It's a command for Muslim how to behave between self. So if you are one group Muslims and another group of Muslims, do not try to start conflict between you, because
Right.
by that time, yeah, by that
So-
time Muhammad have bigger, not just Medina itself under his control. He have Medina and had multiple tribes around him, and all those tribes used to fight each other in the past, and now they have to ally themselves and unite against their enemy.
I got
Yeah,
another
which is-
comment
which is
to read here. Pancake Great says, Aaron, would you be open to giving us your take on the interpretation of the Quran that is taught in the Nation of Islam by Elijah Muhammad and Farrakhan? I have no knowledge of this, so I would need the panel to direct me.
That would be interesting to read. But
I haven't looked into that one. I know they hold some extreme views for sure.
yeah, it's one of those movements where they try to separate themselves from the general society, so they used another religion, and that's why Malcolm X, the story of Malcolm X, that he discovered that it's all a sham and it's not true when he went to Hajj and found that there is white and blacks, all of them being Muslims. So I really don't know much about the Nation of Islam. I didn't even know that they had a Quran or they had an interpretation of the Quran. That probably will be interesting to read for itself.
Yeah, there are extreme interpretations and understandings of this, and these groups have it. And frankly, I didn't look into them. And because we want to talk to some mainstream thing, we didn't look into that aspect of it because it's just too far out.
Yeah, and just like the Black Hebrews.
Yeah.
I think it's better in these type of discussions to only tackle the Sunni and Shia views because they are the majority of Muslims.
Right. You get 90% of what you're talking about talked about, right? And then you can actually go and divulge yourself into these areas of 5 and 10% sects that hold different views in certain aspects. sometimes extremely extreme views in certain aspects. So those definitely do exist, and we can talk about them, but not in the mainstream Islam show, I guess.
So,
Well, somebody did suggest that we do another series on that, and I'm open to talking to people who want to present these the differences between the different subgroups or what have you.
Yeah.
So maybe we can do something like that in the future.
Yeah. So 49:11, actually good verse. Yes, pronouns.
Believers, no one group of men should jeer at another who may, after all, be better than them. No one group of women should jeer at another who may, after all, be better than them. Do not speak ill of one another. Do not use offensive nicknames for one another. How bad is it to be called a mischief maker after accepting faith? Those who do not repent of this behavior are evildoers. But it's okay for Muhammad to describe people as dogs or
Evildoers.
or mischief makers and all of that sort of thing. That's fine, because Muhammad's only speaking what God says, and God created those people and made them exactly how they are and decided how they will believe, and so it's entirely God's fault and they are his creation, but he can make fun of whole swaths of people like that.
Special pleading.
Yes.
Yes. 49:12. 49:12.
Believers, avoid making too many assumptions. Some assumptions are sinful, and do not spy on one another or speak ill of people behind their backs. Would any of you like to eat the flesh of your dead brother? No? You would hate it. So be mindful of God. God is ever relenting, most merciful.
Yes, very interesting verse indeed. So the word zan, which is translated as assumption, is not bad. It's more like I'm going to think badly about someone else. I'm going to see he's definitely murdered his wife, right? Because his wife went missing for 2 weeks. Turns out she was at her sister's, shooting the breeze or whatever. So you don't think badly about people. That's not good. Now, it uses this word zan, which is assumptions. And it actually says some of that is bad. Some of that is sinful. And the next part is even, وَلَا تَجَسَّسُوا وَلَا يُغَيِّبَ بَعْضُكُمْ بَعْضًا. So do not spy on each other. So...
And don't gossip.
And don't gossip behind each other's backs. So that's also a no-no, which also again makes sense. You shouldn't be doing these things. And this last part of the verse is a really stunning one, because do you like to eat the meat of your brother after they die? Of course, nobody likes to do that, right? Cannibalism. This thing, like, it likens this set of practices to cannibalism, just to keep Muslims from doing it. So,
yeah, al-ghiba, which means talking about someone in their back, is one of the, like, when I was raised in Islam, it was, I was told this is one of the bigger sins, because look at how God described people who do it.
yes, and strangely enough, this verse does not put a fiery hell punishment for it. It just puts a here and now. Would you like to eat the meat of your brother when he's dead? Like, of course not, right?
I think why I'm perplexed by this verse as a whole is it mentions a couple of things not to do that has nothing to do with his right, like don't spy, don't talk bad about other people, and don't think bad about them. Like, what does these has to do with each other?
Not much.
You will know what they will do with each other in the next verse.
Yeah.
Let's go.
And verse 14 especially, but yeah, they are building up for
Yeah, I have
something.
notes there.
Yeah.
All right.
No, they definitely are.
So 49:13 is my next note.
People, we created you all from a single man and a single woman and made you into races and tribes so that you should recognize one another. In God's eyes, the most honored of you are the ones most mindful of him. God is all-knowing, all-aware.
I don't think this translation is good enough for this. So it's
Is
a
it?
bit confusing. You created male, you created people from male and female, as in the binary male and female. I won't read it as one woman, and I would read it as made of woman.
Really? Because that's something like this is what I was gonna bring up.
Right.
Because
It is the expression of you are made of woman, right? You are made of man. You're not
so okay,
speaking about a specific person or one man or one woman. You are a woman, and that's how you tell them, even in English.
so my objection to Aaron's note is that in a hadith that is from Imam Ahmed, it says that it reads, "O humanity, your Lord is one, and your ancestry is one," etc., etc. So basically, it's not saying that it comes from one woman and one man, but one ancestry.
Right,
Yes.
right. And that's what I take out of this verse, is that there are females and males. Of course, NB people are not represented here, unfortunately. And
So
made you
that's what
into
it says
nation.
in Arabic? Because all my translations say, both English and Spanish say man and woman. So
Yeah,
It's
man
male
and
and
woman.
female.
It's male and female. You are made into male and female. You are made from woman and you're made from man, aka you are made of a woman and of a man. So you are a woman and a man, and there's nothing in between you, right? And made you into nations and tribes. And I think this is the best part of this verse. And made you into nations and tribes so you could know, recognize, respect, and be friends with each other.
okay.
We have a super chat from M. Doug for £4.49. Without change of allele frequency, they would easily recognize each other because they all look the same.
Clone.
Yes, I recognize you all.
So
I recognize you. You're me.
Great. Great. So, 49,
verse 14.
Let's go to 14, your favorite verse.
The
Yeah,
desert
this one.
Arabs say, "We have faith, prophet." Tell them you do not have faith. What you should say instead is, "We have submitted, for faith has not yet entered your hearts. If you obey God and his messenger, he will not diminish any of your deeds. He is most forgiving and most merciful." Then verse 15, the true believers are the ones who have faith in God and his messenger and leave all doubt behind. The ones who have struggled with their possessions and their persons are in God's way. They are the ones who are true.
Yeah,
So
so
my note was, so if you're Arab, you can only be a true believer as long as you don't live in the desert.
yeah. So the Arabs of the desert told Muhammad that we accept that you are the prophet of Allah and that Allah exists and yada, yada, yada. And now we accepted it. So now we are believers. And this verse says, no, 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 no. You are just accepted it. You submitted to this.
You're just being submissive. You're not
Yeah,
really believing.
this is a religion of submission. You submit to this. And then you believe it truly in your heart.
So,
Right?
so this is why this is why I found this verse very interesting, because this is the footnote from, in this case, is Muntada Islamic Foundation. This one's in Spanish. It mentions that there's a difference between Islam, which is just having a submission, and iman, sorry,
yes.
which is having conviction and
Yeah,
wholehearted.
so we call it true believers generally.
It says that it's a higher form of Islam. So I was
Yes,
like,
it is. It is. So you submit and you, okay, everybody's a submitter, right? But the mu'mins are the ones who believed in Allah and his prophet, then never doubted, and performed the jihad with their money and their persons in the name of Allah, and they were the truthful ones. So this is the definition of a true believer here, versus somebody who just submits to the primacy of Allah and the prophecy of Muhammad.
Yeah, so I had to go ahead and dig up the what's known as the Hadith of Gabriel. I usually don't go to hadiths, but this was kind of interesting, and it didn't quite help all that much to understand for me the difference, because the Iman mentions that it follows the 6 articles of faith, but some of that is already in the Shahada. So
Yeah.
Right. But
So
the thing is,
yeah.
did you believe it? Did you follow up on it? Have you ever had a doubt about it? Or Muhammad said, let's go jump into that well, and then you just freaking jump into that well. Right? Because that's a true believer. Your clip, Aaron, from the last show, when the guy points at one of his followers to jump and she jumps, that's a mu'min. That's a mu'mina right there. The rest of them might just be Muslims, right? They are just believing him. But she really believed him, and she jumped to her death on that scene.
What I get from this. Go ahead.
That's the situation. Yeah, the situation is with Islam, Iman, and Ihsan. There's three hierarchies, because if you understand some of the theology of Islam, your belief could waver and increase, decrease, depending on what you do. So there's 5 actions you have to do to be fully Muslim, to be okay, to survive this life and go to heaven. Shahada, the Salah, the Zakah, the Siyam Ramadan, the fasting in Ramadan, and Hajj. Those are 5 things you have to do. And there are 6 things you have to believe in. And that belief should be 100%. You should not question it.
You can't have doubt.
You cannot have doubt. You believe in Allah, you believe in His messenger, you believe in His books, you believe in His angels, and you believe in the Yawm al-Akhir, which is the final day, and you believe in Qada wal Qadr. So that everyone is going to die, and it's predestined. We live in a predestined world. So that's the 6th pillar of Iman. And
The
if you do
predestination, the concept of predestination.
Yes, the concept predestination. So if you believe in those without questions, you go to the next level. When Muhammad in the Hadith of Gabriel, when he was asked, he said that you worship Allah as if He is watching you. So it's like there is no deviation between the situation in your behavior, if you are alone or if you are in front of other people's.
that last part that you mentioned, that's the Ihsan, right?
Ihsan,
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
And it's more of that hadith. It's probably a later hadith, because it's only mentioned in Imam Ahmad, Musnad Imam Ahmad, which is a later book than most of the hadith books. You don't even find it in, and it's an odd hadith, because the guy who's questioning Muhammad is not anyone. It was Gabriel himself, presenting as a human being. So there's
is this one of the divine hadiths, or
no, it's not.
Oh,
it's not a hadith Qudsi. No, it's a different. It's basically, the claim is that Allah wanted to explain something to the Muslims, but they or the Sahaba, the followers of Muhammad, so He sent His angel to explain it to them.
Basically, there was someone who came to the Prophet. He came to the place where they were in with his companions, and he's a new person they never saw before, and he has no signs of travel on him. So his clothes were new, and he just asked the Prophet the question, and he doesn't even object to it. So he asked the Prophet, "What is the ihsan?" And the Prophet explained. and he moves to the next point. And then he left the place, and the Prophet told him that was Gabriel came in a human form.
Yeah, he basically quizzed him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's
Omniscient
why I
God
said,
does a quiz.
yeah, it's an odd hadith to start with. Like when you read it, it's like there's a lot of questions, like why is it happening this way? What's going on here? Why? So
Yeah, that's what I was thinking when I was reading it. And then Muhammad starts saying weird things about when he's talking about the science of the final hour,
yeah,
about buildings, poor people building stuff, and black
High
camels.
buildings.
I really didn't understand. That was really weird. So, anyway.
Okay.
Yeah,
49.
Mr. Bolochka jest вопрос. And I must disagree. Nepravda. We cannot. We're talking about something Stalinistic there. I'm just making a comment on the chat,
Oh,
and then I'll leave it there. All
right.
right, go ahead.
So 49:18, please read your notes.
49:18. God knows the secrets of the heavens and the earth. He sees everything you do. But he can't see how many fingers I'm holding up now, can he?
I can know how many fingers you're holding up right now. In fact, I know how many fingers you're holding up right now. Can I say?
I was in fact holding up two, just to be confusing, because I thought it would be too obvious.
Okay, I was going for one, but there you go. You beat me. I'm not.
I was holding my toe, so I wasn't even holding fingers.
Oh. All right, Surah 66.
66. Okay, Surah 66. All right, go ahead.
I'm pretty sure the panel will have all the detail and color you need for this one. Understanding it probably requires that piece of folklore.
Another piece of folklore.
Yes,
so
we need that. We need that for this.
So Muhammad's other wives this is verse 1, were jealous of Zainab, one of his wives, because she usually made this ginger drink for him. So they told him it gave him bad breath, which was not true. They were just jealous. So he forbid himself from drinking it to appease the other wives, and later he also forbid himself from having sex with Mary. That was his one of his slaves, just to appease another one of his wives, Hafsa, and later God punished the wives.
Yeah, of course God will punish the wives.
Yeah,
Well, come
they
on.
were the
of
evil
course.
ones.
Yeah.
How is that suitable for every time and place, as the claim says, right?
Yeah.
They say Quran is for every time and place. What does this has to do with anything?
Well, you have to have a wife named Zainab, and then you have to have another wife at the same time who's named Hafsa. And then you also have to have a third wife who's called Aisha. And then who's his fourth wife?
It's not his wife, it's his concubine.
Okay, and then you have to have
Mary.
concubines as well.
Yeah,
there you go.
Yeah, Mary al-Qibtiyya, or Mary the Coptic.
So
Right.
this is a
Yeah.
fourth Mary.
Yeah.
This is
So-
another Mary.
And
From
you have to
another
remember, yeah, all of them have to be teenagers. Like at that time, they all at that age, I think Aisha was the youngest, who was about
16 at this
I
time.
was gonna say
probably.
16,
Yeah,
and
I'm
Hafsa
counting.
maybe a little bit older. Zainab, who I think was Zainab his cousin. She was young too, and then he have his Maria, which is his sex slave from the Egyptian.
How
From
old was she?
Egypt. I don't know exactly. They don't say, but she had a kid. She's the only one beyond his first wife that he ever had a kid with. But the guy is in almost his 60s.
That's
Yeah.
the very end of his life. Pretty
Yeah.
much.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
why
he's-
I'm approximating the age of Aisha at that point. I was going,
Yeah.
yeah, I've got a couple of years more left. Yeah.
So he's 60 some years old, and he have multiple teenage wives.
Yeah. So he dies when Aisha is 18.
Correct.
So we're talking this time interval in time, right? 66:9 is the only verse I have a comment about.
66:9.
Yes, 66:9 is the rest of it is just dribble, but there you
Okay.
go.
Prophet, strive hard against the disbelievers and the hypocrites. Deal with them sternly. Hell will be their home, an evil destination.
Yeah. Not good.
Oh,
Not
shit.
good.
Guys,
No.
it's time for us to repent.
Yeah, we should. That thing is just so nasty. Yeah, so that piece of folklore basically covers what's in this surah, and I think
So-
66:9 is the one that actually says something.
So
I
Jahid here means do jihad against them.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Yeah. Not good.
Okay.
Yeah, and
And just in case you got it wrong, وَغْلِظْ عَلَيْهِمْ.
yep.
Yeah, be harsh on them.
Maybe harsh on them, yeah.
Yeah.
Ishaq Ibrahim says, Aaron Ra, if the prophet, like a woman, then her husband must divorce her for the prophet. This is privilege 10 of 16 given to the prophet, according to Tafsir Kotobi.
Kotobi.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know actually if that's true or not, but if it is, it's really damning. I heard
Yeah.
about it before.
Well, it happened.
Yeah,
where,
I don't know if
It
it's
happened, yeah.
actually I don't know
So-
if it's actually frowned upon.
Yeah, I don't know
Or-
either.
We
But it
read
happened,
about
though.
it in the Quran that Muhammad can marry the divorced wife of his adopted son because he's
Yeah.
an adopted son, so he doesn't count as a real son.
Well, he renounced, like he forbid adoption, so he allows himself to marry
Right. But
without law.
we had this discussion before vis-a-vis the Quran, right?
Yeah.
The problem obviously is that are you now surprised that a stranger will divorce his wife so that Muhammad can have her? Because I think that's a lesser thing than actually marrying your own adopted son's wife, which required a legislative patch here.
I'm not objecting, but I just trying to be factually correct. Like I don't
Right.
want someone like a Muslim to be listening to this and find it's wrong, and then they come to conclusion that many of the things we are saying here is correct, is incorrect.
Yeah, but the
So-
other one is in the Quran. This is a lesser
Yeah.
thing.
So hold on. I want to be charitable, and I want to bring up what a Muslim would say here,
Yeah.
because I'm reading now the interpretation from Sheikh Isa Garcia, and this person goes on a long footnote explaining this idea that other Muslims have told me that it is a myth that Islam is expanded by the edge of the sword and combat those who don't believe. And in verse 190 from Surah 2 Al-Baqarah, it says that you're supposed to combat those who aggravate you, but do not exceed yourself, because God doesn't like aggressors. That's what it says in Al-Baqarah.
Yeah, what you're not supposed to exceed is kill them wherever you find them. That's what you're not supposed to exceed. I don't know how do you exceed that. I have no knowledge of how to do that at all.
So is it the contradictory verses, or
Yeah, it's kind of like, yeah, you should not transgress, but
Well, of
your
course,
limit is the sky, basically.
Yeah, what Bogey's referring to is again 9:5, which basically
Yes.
contradicts everything else.
Right.
All right, so we have 4 Sundays this month, And this one was booked for the Quran lesson. Next week, I will be at this time. I will be at SatanCon in Scottsdale, Arizona. And the weekend after that, I've been scheduled for a podcast interview at this time, the time we would normally do this. So the 20th is going to be booked for me. All I can do for our next episode is the 27th. Does that work for everyone?
Yeah, looks okay.
Okay.
Mhm.
I will see you all then. Welcome, Muhammad.
Thank you
And I
so
will-
much for having
if,
me.
if you share your email address, I'll put you in the list for the last 3 hangouts for this awful book. Okay. Very good. Very good.
Perfect.
All right. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank
Thank you.
you.